Hi guys, welcome to today's session. So this is going to be an introduction to portrait anatomy and a fairly kind of basic look at portrait anatomy. It's not going to be super detailed. We're not going to go into loads of names of anatomical features of the skull or muscles or anything like that. Just a kind of very kind of basic look, and ideally we're going to try to focus on stuff that is the most functional for you, kind of helping you draw portraits. So I'm going to keep it as much as possible sort of not too complex, because you can go very complex with anything to do with anatomy. And the structure is going to be, we're going to look through a bunch of different paintings, drawings, and there's one sculpture. All of these are from the Rijksmuseum collection, so they've got a really good collection of like free to use totally public domain artworks. Both the Rijksmuseum and the Met Museum have released all their works for like total free access, which is really good for artists or anyone who wants to use all their material. And it's a really good resource, so I recommend it if you ever want to find something to copy. Master copies are always really good to do, drawings and paintings and artifacts and all sorts of stuff. It's really great. So yeah, that's just off the Rijksmuseum collection. And I've taken each of them and then photographed my sort of anatomical skull model. So I photographed that with the portrait. Basically the skull is in the same angle as much as possible as the portrait. There is a little bit of deviation because it's a male skull, and it's obviously one specific male skull that it's based on, and skull shapes do vary, but on the whole it'll give you a reasonable idea of sort of what we're going to be looking for is where kind of major landmarks in the skull kind of line up with what we see on the surface. As I say, there are muscles, and obviously flesh has an impact as well, which we'll be looking at a little bit. But primarily we're going to be kind of just focusing on those bits of the portrait where the skull kind of presents itself and tends to give structure. So the sort of upper part of the cranium, obviously that's all sort of bone that we're looking at. We see bone through the nose. The bottom part of the nose is cartilage. We tend to see cheekbones will sort of be somewhat pronounced, obviously more or less depending on the person. The brow will be somewhat pronounced as well. And then kind of getting down to the jaw, we also see the bones sort of expressed through there. Through the kind of central portion of the face, it tends to be a bit more, we have more muscles and more flesh. Obviously the teeth kind of form part of the skull as well. So we're going to be sort of trying to map landmarks that we can see in the skull onto portrait drawings, paintings, and sculptures. Just to start kind of thinking about how the sort of solid structures of the head underpin the portrait as we look at it, which can help a lot to sort of just start to add a little bit of solidity to your portrait drawings and paintings. So hopefully it'll be useful just as we move forward if you're doing the next couple of workshops. So the next one is starting portrait drawings, which will be kind of following very closely on from the stuff that we talk about in this workshop. And then the final one is the detailed charcoal drawing, so we'll be kind of applying those ideas to a more detailed piece. But the idea is that this workshop works quite closely with that starting portrait drawings workshop. So this one you're not actually drawing, but it's getting you thinking a bit about the structures of the head, and then when we actually start drawing the portrait, hopefully it'll help you to have a sort of something to anchor your drawing to. So I'm just going to swap over to my my screen now, so you should be able to see my Photoshop.